everyone, welcome to another intelligent edition of ARG Presents. I am Amigo Aaron, joined by a man that knows more tricks than a rodeo clown, the Brent.
It's true. I know 4 tricks.
That is more than a rodeo clown. They know one trick, jump in barrel, get murdered. So, if you tuned in last week, we spun the wheel.
Yes.
We made the deal.
Twice.
We did spin it twice. We made 2 deals. This week, we'll be playing games on the very wooden, very intelligent Intellivision, Intelligent TV by our good friends over at Mattel.
Yes.
Brent, did you ever play with or have you ever owned an Intellivision?
Yes, I believe it was our cousin that had one of these.
It was.
And I played Night Stalker till my fingers bled. Oh my gosh, I love that game.
Yes. I was a big fan of that one as well, and we discovered quite a few games over there.
Yes.
I remember there were, this was a tough episode to choose for because there were so many games that I remembered liking on the Intellivision.
Right.
The Intellivision, a very unique system in its day and today.
Very much.
Mostly due to these controllers right here, which you'll see this disc is your controller, and you've got these this very beautiful keypad. Now, these were not popular joysticks, were they?
No, and with good right. I mean, no, I didn't really notice it at the time, but as more consoles came out and better sticks came out, the flaws in these really became apparent.
You know, the sad truth is, when a game used them correctly, they were tremendous control mechanisms, with one failing, which was the disc was not durable, was it?
No.
And when they went bad, you were bummed.
Yeah,
you would get weird stuff that happened. And they weren't the easiest things to fix either. But overall, they were sort of ahead of their time, and it was a design that was copied again and again. The ColecoVision took the keypad. The 5200 or the Atari used it multiple times. The Jag had it as well. That keypad thing. So people saw the use of it. They also saw the use of the overlays.
Yes.
Which again were something that I think Intellivision was the first to come out with. Let's learn a little bit about the Intellivision, Brent, and see how much of this you already knew.
Sounds good.
So the release date on the Intellivision in the U.S. was 79. That's when they tested it. And then they released it in mass in 1980, and in the UK in 81. In Europe, it kind of varied. Mostly it was 82. Japan got it in 82, and Brazil got it in 83. It's funny how often these things come up with a Brazil launch, and I'm wondering how this one did. I didn't read much about the popularity of this, so I'm guessing it wasn't a huge seller, but who knows. So these retailed in the U.S. at $299, which is pretty pricey. That's a little over $1,000 in today's money.
Yeah. That's pretty. That's up there.
Right. So of course, this was not a huge powerhouse, but for the time, it was actually pretty impressive.
It had a lot of tricks too.
It had 524 bytes of RAM, 932 bytes of graphic memory. It had a pretty good sound in it. I thought the sound was okay. It wasn't. It was better than the Atari, I think, by slim margin.
Probably by use.
Right. So the best-selling game. You want to take a guess at this? I thought this was kind of interesting.
Night Stalker?
No.
Oh.
And the funny thing is, this is sort of a trick. I guess the best shipped game, the most shipped, Las Vegas Poker and Blackjack, which was the pack-in.
Came with the system. That's not fair.
The 1.9 million. The best-selling game, Major League Baseball, just over 1 million. Now, of course, I believe there was a bundle that had baseball in it as well at some point. So that is a little bit deceptive.
Yeah.
You want to take a get now? Mattel was active with the Intellivision until '84. Then the reins were sort of picked up by the INTV Corporation, which basically bought all the stock of the Intellivision, made some new games, and they actually ran this thing until '90, selling cartridges and stuff.
So that late? Wow.
The Intellivision user base is pretty good. Now, do you want to guess? You want to take a guess on how many units were sold? Now, the figures, of course, at this time are a little scanty, and this would cover basically 1980 through around the end of '83. What would you figure?
I'll say 2.1.
Not bad. 3 mil.
Yeah.
3 mil, that's pretty good. That's pretty good coverage, though, I thought.
Considering the price, especially.
Sure. So this thing was test marketed in Fresno, and it was very popular, and so that's when they knew they had something. Again, this thing was This thing came from Mattel, Mattel Electronics, which was a division of Mattel Toys. And so, of course, Mattel Toys is a huge toy company. I believe Mattel did the original run of Star Wars figures, as I recall.
Yeah.
I think that was them. So the Intellivision came out when the Atari was really running the roost. This is the Atari 2600 or the Atari VCS or whatever you want to call it. And do you remember? Now you were, of course, a real young fellow, but you knew by the time you came around, the Atari and the Intellivision had been around for a while.
I remember playing both.
Do you remember having a preference of the two? And
Atari.
Why?
Atari for sure. The sticks were better. The games were better. The games were better multiplayer. And that's what I did was I played them with my cousin. So, because we didn't have an Atari, or an Intellivision.
Now, of course, we mentioned that this had a European release.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's kind of interesting is the Intellivision, the PAL version, only has 80% of the screen taken up because of the difference between PAL and ATSC. Now, boy, I know how that feels on the Amiga, and where the picture is exact opposite. We have less screen; it takes up when we have a big blank spot. So that's always a pain in the butt. Again, we mentioned that in '84, the INTV Corporation liquidated all the remaining inventories of the Intellivision. The Intellivision had several iterations.
Yes.
Okay. What we've got here, for our viewers at home, is the old Woody, the old Intellivision that I knew well. Now, this particular model comes with the joysticks there you go. They pop right out of here, and you can see there's a connector there. These are good sticks. And they've got a little holder here for the sticks on both sides, and then right here is you've got a cartridge slot.
Mm-hmm. Now, on the side. That's
right. Now they also released what's called the Intellivision 2, which I've got one right here. Grab it here. Now this one is a little damaged. It's a work in progress, but this is what an Intellivision 2 looks like for our viewers. This is you can see it's a smaller box. You've got your cartridge slot here, and
certainly a more modern look for the time.
Yeah, and you can see that the controllers are a little bit. They're the same type of controllers. Now this one, the disc is broken off, but you can see, and the cartridges go right there. These were their cost-effective model, so they were interesting in that they were mostly compatible. But there were Intellivision decided to slip in some kind of copy protection that made certain third-party games not work.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, which I thought that was kind of strange. So this particular model was sold under several different names and had included something called the System Changer. Now, the System Changer was something that was in vogue back in the day. I don't know if you've ever had one of these system changers.
I mean, I know of them. I know you own one, but I've never had one back in the day.
I've got a couple of these things, and what they would let you do, amazingly, is let you play your competitors' games on your machine.
Yeah.
The most notable one is the ColecoVision expansion for the Atari that would let you play Atari 2600 games on your ColecoVision. Now, I use this thing for all my Atari playing, because I've modded the ColecoVision with a good video out,
right?
And it works great. I've got a multi-card I stick in there and play it. And effectively, what these things do is just route the. Are they basically an Atari console, rip-off that just routes all the stuff to the outputs and the joysticks? So, not to be outdone, Intellivision had to come out with theirs. This is the Intellivision System Changer. And you can see this one was made for the, I don't know if they ever made one for the original, but this was made for the Intellivision 2. And you see you've got the same kind of buttons you would have here on the Atari 2600 to get that thing to work. This thing was pretty compatible, as was the ColecoVision one. Now, it's funny because Atari kept getting hosed in this deal because all their competitors kept making things to play their game.
Yeah.
So
can you imagine that in the modern era of today? That lawsuits would be going crazy.
It would be very unusual. So let's get into the game library a little bit. Now, of the games released on television, Mattel released 51 games. Then you had Activision made 7. Now, this always makes me laugh too, because again, this is when your competitors are peddling your stuff. So Atari made 3 games for their competitor. Coleco made 8 games. And Magic had 14 games. Now, Magic was a big player on the Intellivision and did some really good stuff. I would point out their version of Demon Attack on the Intellivision is awesome. It's got this awesome end stage where it's sort of like, it's very much like the end of Phoenix, where you fight this demonic spaceship with a big devil head at the top. You remember what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
And also their version on the of Demon Attack had this really awesome kind of lunar scape in the background. It was, I think it probably was the best on the Intellivision. Parker Brothers had 6 titles and Sega had 1. That adds up to about 115 games.
Yeah.
Now there have been some homebrew. Television sort of remains pretty popular, to this day. There were games that had multiple releases under multiple names that were the same game, and usually it was due to licensing issues. For example, Major League Baseball lost the license for Major League Baseball, so they just came back for baseball. Same thing with football. And actually, one of the games we covered today had a similar fate and got a name change, which we'll get into that in a little while. Again, these games had overlays, and they would slide down in here. In some games, the overlays weren't important at all. You didn't bother with them. In some games, they were vital.
Yes.
And if you didn't have the overlay, you better have a good memory or you're boned.
Yeah. Because essentially, there's 12 keys they can map to do whatever they want. Well, I guess, and the side buttons. So
right. So the funny thing is, when you play these games with the overlays, these overlays tend to wear out, and so you could buy replacement overlays, for it if you needed them. But like Brent said, if you've got all those buttons there, I'll use the example of baseball. The baseball on the Intellivision is unique amongst all baseball games.
Yes.
And the reason is you can literally, with the touch of one of the keypads, can control all the players. You can literally pick any player you want on the field. It's a really awesome version of baseball. It's amongst my all-time favorite versions. The version of NFL football in this is unbelievably deep.
It's complicated.
You have to have 2 playbooks, and if you don't have the playbooks, you're boned.
You are.
Because you've got to type in codes and stuff to put into plays. Very innovative for a time where Atari baseball and football were out, and those were just the
controlled by
worst.
one button.
Right,
yeah.
right. They were just dirt. They were the dirt worst. So, with all that in mind, I should mention, I almost forgot. The Intellivision, much like the Odyssey, had a voice expansion.
Yes.
Which I've got one, but who knows where I've stashed it. The voice expansion, I think, had 4 titles released for it, including my personal favorite, B-17 Bomber, where you've got like a hick.
By far the most famous.
That reads all the text in it. It was very similar to the Odyssey one, except this one didn't require you to really have the sound come out in. And it's a quality little unit for the games that were released for it. The games that came with the voice module were kind of gold tinted. They were gold. Do you have any? Let's talk about some of your favorite games. We don't often. We played so many. What were the games that you really enjoyed on the Intellivision? We obviously know Night Stalker.
Well, like I said, Night Stalker was by far my favorite game on the Intellivision. Just because of its atmosphere. It was a maze game, but the atmosphere of it was really unique, really dark and gritty, especially when you're like 6. I actually really enjoyed the blackjack that came with it. I remember playing that, and again, I was 6, so I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew enough to know I wanted to try to get 21 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Again, as you mentioned, the baseball on this is remarkable. Although complicated.
Well, it takes you to task.
Yes.
And the original baseball required 2 people. I'm not sure if it was a sequel that I know when some of the Intellivision lives and whatnot, they've made it so you can play the computer, but in the original, you were playing, you had to play another person.
Yes.
So it's unique among titles of sports titles, especially back, and I don't think it's never been done since. Nowadays you could sort of do it with more modern controllers, but you got to think this was an 82, 83.
Well, but would you? That's the question. I think it's too complicated for today's audience who just wants to play baseball.
I don't know about that. If you try to use a modern controller, they got like 1 million buttons on them.
But think of it this way. You've got games now, modern baseball games, where you play a position and you only play the pitches that go to your guy or might involve your guy. And the rest of the game is cut out to speed up the game.
Yeah.
So, I think it's I think in an era where back in the day, anything that was complex was kind of frowned upon because it alienated some of your audience. Doing something like that today would completely destroy your audience.
Well, the Intellivision was billed as intelligent television. I think people sort of expected a step up, but they got it with several games. I should also mention a game on the Intellivision called Utopia, which is a very popular game. It's sort of considered the granddaddy of those sort of world building. I guess they were real time strategy type affairs. That was a game that was a little bit beyond me, but I mean it's a very popular game. Just for fun, I had a look to see what sold the most aside from baseball, which we know that one. And from what I could tell, just under 1 million sold. You had football, Astro Smash, which is another very popular game. Space Battle and Space Armada. And then just a step under that, you had Star Strike and the original Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh,
they're around 7 or 800,000. Again, these numbers are a little scanty, so they might have actually gotten up and got over 1 million. Like I said, it's hard to say. So a lot of nutty games got released in here. A lot of arcade ports. Burger Time, was on here. They had a He-Man, the Masters of the Universe game on here. I know, weird stuff. Of course, the wheels were coming off there because of the video game crash. Now, a lot of people overseas don't. I mean, I'm sure by now they've heard this term 1 million times, but it didn't happen over there. This was exclusively an American event. But if you'll recall, and I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, but they were blowing out games and game systems for a ridiculously low rate.
I remember going to KB Toys, and they had a bin out front, stocked to a peak of Atari games that they were like $1.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we bought tons of them.
Now,
and I think a lot of the reasons why the American market crashed and none of the others did is the American market peaked a lot harder than a lot of the other markets too.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously the quality of games and that kind of crap hurt.
Yeah.
But man, there was a huge spike in video games back in the day.
Now here's something I thought was, I always was sort of fascinated by this angle. The programmers at Atari, as you'll recall, were not really loaded up on royalties for their games.
No.
And that was the breaking point that launched Activision. And, of course, eventually Atari instituted a program. Well, Intellivision was the same thing. Intellivision had a very famous group of programmers called the Blue Sky Rangers, which are that's a name that's stuck around. People know it. And they, I read, I was like, I wondered if these guys were compensated. Well, guess what? No, they weren't compensated until the very bitter end. Wow. In '83, in probably an effort to boost morale, because they were already starting to lay people off and whatnot. They gave them a royalty program, and only games in '83 were eligible, and there weren't that many people that made any money on it. So this is another event where you've got a bunch of guys who are really doing breakout work that get no love.
Yeah, and thankfully that's sort of died off. Of course, back then you had games programmed by a team of 3.
Yeah, or 1.
Yeah.
So something else I thought was interesting. This is something I thought was real. You don't hear much about it. The Intellivision had sort of a computerized sequel called the Aquarius. Okay, now the Aquarius is sort of like a slightly jacked up Intellivision.
Right.
Intellivision had one of the things they had promised for pretty much since its launch was it was going to have a keyboard and eventually become a full-fledged computer. And so time went on, and they did invest money in trying to make this happen. It just wasn't working that well. And so people started complaining and filing suits and contacting the FCC. And so the FCC said, listen, you promised people you were going to do this. We're going to fine you $10,000 a day until we get some hot keyboard computer action on the Intellivision. and they did it. They actually eventually
Wow.
came up with something, and it was a, it was an expansion. I don't know if anyone ever got it or ever had it. It was super, but it basically got the FC off their back,
right?
Which I thought was kind of neat. The Aquarius, which is a system maybe we'll touch on at some point in the future. I've not ever had one. I've almost picked one up, believe it or not, but they're pretty rare. Occasionally, I'll see peripherals for them.
Right.
But they're, like I said, they and a lot of Intellivision, well, not a lot. There were several Intellivision games that got a port to it. So very, very, very odd thing. So with all that said, we were tasked with choosing a couple games from the Intellivision library of games. I think I'll lead the charge this week, Brent.
Alrighty.
With my game. So I went ahead and picked Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Treasure of Tarmin. So,
thank you.
Yeah, Gesundheit, right? So, what's the scoop on this game? Well, to fully understand what you've got here, you've got to understand sort of what Dungeons and Dragons is. So, let's talk about the original Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons was a role-playing game that was originally released in 1974. The game was conceived by Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax. These two guys had noticed through their war game playing that they could use those rules and kind of add more to it to take the game in a different direction.
Right.
And of course, little did they know, they would end up coming up with a game that ends up being so popular, and also a game that inspired so many others to make so many other games.
Yes.
I was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons probably would have been about 82, something like that, and maybe a little bit earlier. And my buddy had it, and I always saw him looking at it, and I was like, man, that looks really cool. And I remember seeing the game at a hobby store we went to. I was like, man, this looks like a great game. I've been pretty much playing more on and off ever since. I probably don't miss at least playing it a couple times a year.
I play a role-playing game night between Dungeons & Dragons and Champions and Delta Green and Cthulhu. We've been playing consistently every week for about 8 years now.
Yeah, and I've played in that
online.
Yeah, I played in that for a long time myself. This game was originally published in Chainmail magazine, this is way you're talking way back in the early 70s. And of course, the game was something I didn't know. I was always wondered this. That the legend has it that the name of the game was picked by Gary Gygax's daughter from a bunch of different names, and she chose that one out. If you're into J.R.R. Tolkien, you would probably like D&D, considering they pretty much grifted and lifted most of the stuff out of there, and would never admit it until years later. They finally admitted, we got a few. They got got a ton of the lore and monsters and stuff from the writings of.
They twisted it a little bit, but it was obviously where the source was coming from.
In '81, the game had more than 3 million players, and the rules were selling at a rate of about 750,000 per year in 1984. So they were selling the crap. And that's really when Dungeons & Dragons really hit its high turn right there. And so they ended up making a ton of money. There was some law stuff that went on. Eventually, the whole company, believe it or not, it's amazing that TSR was so poorly ran that they ended up selling out to Wizards of the Coast.
Yes.
And Hasbro in, I think it was 92. And then basically once that happened, that Gary Gygax is sort of on the outside. He did some other stuff, and there were some lawsuits between him and his partner. It got a little ugly there. For a while.
Really
Gary, of course, also gained some notoriety for his turn on Futurama.
Yes,
where he actually voiced himself, which was great. He passed away in 2008, and Dave passed away in 2009. And so I looked to see where Treasure of Tarmin rated on the list of games that were licensed for Dungeons and Dragons as video games, because it was this would be really early on. As far as I could tell, it was the second, or it was at least at bare minimum the second. It may have been the third. I couldn't quite discern which ones were released first. It was right in the same ballpark. So you're thinking to yourself, how does the Intellivision, something this old, do a Dungeons and Dragons game. Well, this was not their first attempt. The original Dungeons and Dragons game on Intellivision, which was a pretty popular game, was sort of a runner. I'm trying to. What would you equate that to? Runner. It was sort of like a very. You ran around in like a maze, and it sort of appeared before you, and you could sort of fight stuff. It was pretty. It was okay.
It was a top-down type view.
Well, it was a side view. It was weird. I was never a huge fan.
No, I wasn't either.
But I mean, of course, I saw the box. I'm like, holy smokes, Dungeons and Dragons.
The box was awesome. Yeah.
You know, so eventually, and it sold pretty well, as we mentioned. It was something that sold up near 1 million units, and so they looked to make it again. And they did, and so the fellow that made it was named Tom Lowry. It came out in '83. Now this game was a game of a whole different flavor from the original. This game had you in effectively a first-person view in a 3D maze.
Yes.
All right. The goal of this game is to go down, I think it's 12 levels, and reach the Minotaur, and the Minotaur carries the treasure. Tarmin, once you get that, the game ends.
Right.
Now, I mean, it can end.
And 12 levels is actually dependent on your choice of difficulty. You can actually set it for much less, but that's the max.
If you look at the difficulty, and I read the manual for this, they've got games because they put the game time depending on your level you pick. I think the levels are easiest, easy, normal, and hard. I believe it. I think there's 4 levels, and hard can. It says the hard game will run anywhere from an hour and a half to 5 hours of game time.
Yeah, there's no way you can complete hard in an hour and a half.
And those are real time hours. This
Yes.
isn't like game time.
No.
That means you're going to be playing Intellivision for 5.5 hours.
Yeah,
you know, that's a long haul. So, what is the game in its essence? Well, it's an attempt of a very old machine to do something that was very unusual, which is that 3D maze. Now, right out of the gate, you've got to give this game props.
Tons.
This game attempted something. It's just one of the reasons why I picked it, because I couldn't believe it when I watched the video of it. This game has your character move around in a 3D maze.
Yes.
Now, this was '83. I'm trying to think of anything I've seen of that era that is in the same ballpark.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. It was a very unique look. The mazes weren't like little squares. They were big mazes.
Yeah.
And multi-floored. I mean, up and down actually mattered.
Yes. The game had you running through the maze, and you basically have an inventory. I believe you can hold 6 items. You have basically 2 sets of hit points. This I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
You have sort of a war set of hit points, and you have a spiritual set of hit points.
Yes.
Those also vary depending on the game difficulty.
Yeah.
The higher difficulty, the lower they start out.
It's basically your physical damage, when you have swords, knives, axes, bows, and then your magical damage that you could take, fireballs, magic missiles, that sort of affair.
Another thing it keeps track of, the game actually is pretty complex.
It is.
It takes your guy can carry a bow with a quiver. That's what he starts out with, and you can keep up to 99 arrows.
Yep.
It also keeps track of food, which you'll find in the maze. Now, I think part of this cleverness is also the game's undoing to a certain degree, which I'll get into that in a moment. So your task is going through this dungeon, and you're defeating creatures, picking up treasures, avoiding weirdness, traps, and whatnot as you go through. And the monsters, there's a good load of monsters in this.
There is, yeah. There's tons of sprites for monsters. Yeah, it was way more than I had thought. I thought you'd get your basic humanoid and your basic monster, and maybe an end boss sprite. But there's tons.
So get this. Now each enemy has 3 different colors, except for the Minotaur. You've got and the colors are basically the threat level.
Yeah.
Right. So, but listen to this cast of characters. I mean, this would be any D&D module would be proud to have these guys. You've got your skeletons. You've got cloaked skeletons, all right? Giant ants, dwarfs, giant scorpions, the scorpions, giant snakes, alligators, dragons, ghouls, right? You've got wraiths. You've also got the Minotaur, okay? That's a lot of monsters, man.
Yeah.
That's not counting some of the other sneaky stuff that they've put in there. Sometimes you'll come across a treasure chest or something that will have a bomb in it.
Yeah. Trap chest.
You also come to these gates. These gates were very odd. So what the gates would do, there are 3 different colors of gates, and when you went through them, it would basically swap your spiritual health and your war health. 2 of them would swap, it'd do stuff to them, and then one, that was the tan one, just didn't do anything. You could go through that one, which I thought was really, strange. And you've got to consider that this is a game that was the contemporary of the most basic, simplest things you ever saw on, like, the Atari or something. I mean, just the level of complexity to this was startling to me. I couldn't believe it.
When you compare this to something like Adventure or Atari, it's night and day.
You could actually, if you choose to, you could defeat the Minotaur and then not take the treasure. And you could keep playing, and you could actually run through 256 levels of this game.
Yep.
And it's mentioned in the book, so this wasn't like an anomaly. It says on the last level, if you go to the ladder, it will put you back to level 1. So effectively, you can kind of keep going. So again, the game was written by Tom Lowry, and Tom, again, he did the original game as well, the original Dungeons and Dragons game. The funny thing about him is he was basically working this game on basically consigned from another place. He was basically sublet from an outfit called APH Technology. That's where he worked. He went on to do a lot of pretty decent stuff. He was heavily involved in Test Drive 3, which is funny because we just covered Test Drive 2 on the Amigos. PGA Tour 96-97, Need for Speed 3, Sub Hunt, Worm Womper. That was one of his Intellivision titles. He also did the Dreadnought Factor on the Intellivision, and he did a C64 game, Steel Thunder. So he did a lot. He did a ton of games, which is impressive. So let's talk about how this game controls. And this is where things start to, for me, they take a little turn to the south. So we mentioned how incredibly complex that these controllers can be. This has an overlay. It's got to be the mother of all overlays.
It is by far the most important overlay for the system I've ever seen.
I played this. I don't have this cartridge, so I had to play this on the PC, and I had to have a picture of the overlay on the screen so I could tell what the hell is going on. You've got buttons on here. When you move your character, you don't just turn left and he turns left. It's very odd, isn't it? You go forward and he'll go straight. And then you can turn left or right, but you can't go backwards. Backwards doesn't do anything. Now you can, but there's a retreat/retrace your steps button on the keypad. That I thought was interesting. I thought it was actually impressive, but also annoying. Because once you're in combat, you can't. Your tendency is to want to hit the. If it's not going well, to back up, and you can't. Your first instinct is to use that pad. You've got buttons on there to look left and right. You've got buttons to pick stuff up. You've got button to open stuff. But the most annoying thing about this game, and this is the thing that killed it for me, I'll be honest with you, is the inventory stuff. Your guy can carry 2 items, and he can have 6 items in total. But to pick this stuff up, you can't pick anything up with stuff in your hand.
Yeah.
And so every time you come across something, you've got to juggle all your stuff. And it revolves hitting these inventory buttons over and over and cycling through your inventory, moving stuff around. When you want to use something, it's not a snap, bam, I'll just get my weapon up and go. You have to cycle through what weapon you want. It's a real hassle, especially if you're knee-deep in the hoopla and you don't have time to sit there and look at that keypad. I understand why it's like that. They really had no choice if you want to have an inventory. And the fact that this thing has a robust inventory is quite remarkable.
Yeah.
But that really was a pain in the butt. Now, That being said, I was playing this with having to look at the overlay on that thing and use a number pad. If I had actually had the legitimate overlay with the controller, it might have been less of a hassle. But it was very awkward. What did you think?
It was awkward. In my opinion, this game is a complete D&D package. It has, like you said, a huge inventory of items to pick up, and they're useful. I mean, you've got your bows, you've got your bombs, you've got your spears, you've got axes, and they're all projectile weapons because, you've got a sword that you can use, but for the most part, you want to try to get your monster at a distance.
You're throwing axes and stuff.
Yeah.
And you've also, of course, you've got the magic stuff as well.
Right. I understand that the inventory it's a little awkward because you have to rotate and you either have to put what you've got in your hand on the ground to see what the new inventory is and then put it in your bag and then pick it back up, or just shove something in your bag, pick it up, shove that in your bag, and then go back. I found that what I was doing a lot of is I would come across an item, because items are common. I would say they're common. And you also got treasure that when you pick it up, it's just points. The icons for each thing, pretty descriptive. There's only a few things that made me go, I don't know what this is.
Right.
And after I looked it up, I was like, okay, that makes sense. I found myself, I would pick something up, like if it was another weapon, like a bow. Say you've got a bow, because you start with a bow, and you've got another bow there. You pick it up, you check to see how much damage it does, because your damage number will change. If it's not something better, just swap it back and keep moving. That's what I did. I found myself collecting spears, because they seem to do the most damage, and they're a thrown weapon. So when there was an enemy up ahead that was more powerful than I thought I could deal with, I would just chuck spears at them. Take care of them that way. It was odd how they did the food and the arrows. When you checked the food or the arrows, it wouldn't just put a number up on the screen. It would click.
Yeah.
And it would click, 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 real fast. So you knew an approximate amount of how much you had, not a definite number.
Right.
I really, really like this game. I've probably played this for 3 or 4 hours.
Really?
Yeah. And I got deep into it. I got several floors in, and you get experience and you level up, which gives you more hit points and more magic points to take damage with.
Right.
Some floors, the floors are actually color-coded. Some floors would only have magic enemies on them. Some floors would only have physical damage enemies on them. And some would have both. The both is the killer, because it's hard to manage your stuff. But I think I was playing on easy. I got 3 floors down. I didn't get to the Minotaur. And restarting this is kind of a pain, because you have to go all the way back. So that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But this is a game, it's not action-packed. I mean, there's action when you attack and when you fight, but it is an exploration game. You sit down, you take your time going through it. I didn't go as far as to map the dungeon, but I dug how when you get to a door, it's not just an open dungeon, there's doors.
Yeah.
And when you open a door, it has a little animation of the door opening. And when you go into the room, it's not just like a door that leads to another cavern or another, huge hallway. Most of the doors led to rooms, 2 or 3 block rooms that you'd go in there and you'd look. Maybe there'd be a monster, maybe there'd be some items. You do what you're going to do in that room, and then you leave and you go back down your hallway or your turn, your twist. It had icons on the map that would let you know when you're on the perimeter.
Yeah.
And there were no monsters on the perimeter, so you didn't have to worry about getting attacked out there.
They also had these sort of eyeball-looking icons that would kind of give you an idea of what you were headed for, in terms of difficulty. There's a lot to like. I'm not here to bury the game, but it was for me. It was a hassle. Maybe I've been spoiled.
You know what I think it is? I think you had the exact same problem that I had last week, and you didn't have enough time to properly invest in the game. Because this game, outside of not having a party, it was the D&D experience.
It was. I will say, when I looked it over and really read the instructions, it's quite remarkable. I mean, I would never have guessed something like this existed. here's something that will really blow your mind.
All right.
So, Mattel in '83 commissioned an Atari 2600 version of this.
Never gonna happen.
Oh yeah. So it was developed by Synth Corporation in Chicago, and two fellows, Michael Bingston and Neil Reynolds, wrote the game. And the game was completed. It was never released because that's when Mattel shut down.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if this exists somewhere. There was another version of this that was released for the Aquarius.
Okay,
And I saw screenshots of it, and it was nice. It was a more graphically impressive. It wasn't like night and day, but it was a more graphically impressive version.
And the graphics in this are good. They're good. When you see something, you know what it is. There's no question. 90% of the time.
I have to say, with the controls aside, one other thing I want to mention, and this is sort of Intellivision wide. When you hit a button that's not used or in play, it has the most abrasive noise in the history of the world.
Yeah.
It goes, and I mean, it is a god-awful sound, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the best they could come up with.
It's so bad.
You know you've messed up. I mean, this should be your error message in Windows. I mean, it is horrible, and I heard that sound a lot when I was fumbling through that controller. Yeah. That was quite an annoyance. I looked around, and some guy, just for fun, did a remake of this for free as a programming exercise, and I will link it up. But it was on GitHub, and it was a remake of the game. He just enhanced it a little, which I thought that was kind of neat. One last thing I should mention is that this game was released under the name Minotaur when the Dungeons & Dragons licensing ran out, I suppose. And it actually is in some collections. I think it's also in the last Intellivision console, the little one that came out. Which I must admit, of all the little consoles, that's the one I would like to have the most because replicating these. Yeah. If you don't have those, it's just not the same, is it?
And here's the thing. This game probably uses the Intellivision controller better than anything I've ever played. It really... Because you cannot have this game and not have the keypad. Yeah. You cannot do it. Because the keypad holds so many commands that are just absolutely vital to the way the game plays. I love the graphics. I like the sound outside of the sound. I liked how it played. I like the controls. You have to get used to them. There's no doubt about that. If I owned an Intellivision, this would be in my library. I would give this a solid 8 out of 10.
Wow, very impressive.
Yeah. Really enjoyed it.
I wanted to buy this, by the way. In fact, my first goal was like, man, this looks great. I'm going to buy it. It's kind of pricey to get. It's not mega pricey, but I mean, if I wanted to get a box copy, and I looked for a sealed copy because the folly of buying used Intellivision games is often they come with no overlays or mauled overlays, and so it's nice to get a nice one. I saw a sealed version of this go, and there was none up when I looked. $30.
Oh, this is worth $30. All day long. Now if you're a retro gamer and you like D&D and you want to sit down and play a game, not just run through it, not just hit your Diablo attack button over and over. If you want to sit down, have a dungeon adventure, maybe get your grid paper out and map it, this is a game for you. This is an incredibly good game.
You can get the loose cart for $5, but that's not going to do any good.
No, well, you'd have to print overlays. You have to have the overlay.
Can you print those, you think?
Oh, yeah.
And then you can get a box copy for $16. Your mileage may vary on the
and the box
quality.
Is beautiful.
The box looks like straight out of a D&D module.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
One thing I should mention before we move on to your game, I did price an Intellivision just to see if I wanted one.
Sure.
$60 to $70 working. You can get them.
Wow, I might have to look into this.
These I've actually got 3 of them, so maybe we can talk. The Intellivision has only RF out. And to mod these things is it's a little bit trickier than say doing an Atari or something, which I haven't modded one. So the lay person out there that just wants something they can hook up and play, I really probably would recommend the portable all-in-one, whatever those things are called. I've heard it does a good job, and this game is amongst the games in it. Yeah. It's under the Minotaur logo, but it doesn't really mean anything, right. Again, will you get overlays? You're probably boned. Right. So there you go. So, well, good. You like that game more than I did, and I picked it. So that's an unusual thing. Ooh. So let's talk. Let's move over to you, bro. What do you got for us this week?
I sticking with my pseudo sports theme, I chose Motocross. Motocross has a kind of unique design history. In 1981, Rick Levine started the project. This was his follow-up to, of all games, PBA Bowling.
Yeah.
He stuck with it for a while, and then he left Mattel. And so his code was never finished. Got stuck on a shelf somewhere. And he actually left Mattel because he was commuting from Irving to Hawthorne. Obviously not every day, because that's like a 2,000-mile commute. But he didn't like making that trip to go and work on stuff. So he eventually quit and took a non-gaming job. A little note about him, he actually did come back later and work for iMagic, where he did some additional television games, Microsurgeon and Truckin'.
That Microsurgeon's quite a game.
Creepy,
That's a creepy one, yeah.
So the game sat on the shelf for months at Intellivision because no one really wanted to pick it up. No one had a desire. And another Rick came to save the day. Rick Quinging took a stab at it. He said, you know what, I'm a biker. Let's go. Let's finish this thing up. Took a crack at the code and it couldn't figure it out. And I can understand it. You've got code sitting around for months. If it's not really well commented on what does what, and you try to go in and pick it up, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. So he said, look, Intellivision, I want to make this game, but I can't work with this code. I just want to start over. Which, that's saying those months of work that the other Rick did on it, gone. Just wasted time. But they lamented. And he said, you know what, I'll keep the concept, I'll keep the graphics, or some of the graphics, but otherwise I'm going to start over. So, new animations were put in by Joe Fiera, and he was really kept that a colorful feel for a game like Motocross. Really decent bike animations, I really liked them. But Rick said, you know what, I'm not going to make an arcadey fight game. I want something with more realism. I want it to really feel like you're going over those jumps and sliding around those corners. And that's what he did. He actually made a physics engine for the Intellivision for his racing game. Pretty unheard of at the time. I mean, most of that kind of crap was all faked to the moon. But since he did that, that's why you get not just a cookie cutter animation for hang time. It's based on your speed and your takeoff angle and stuff. So I thought it was really well done. This was originally supposed to be part of the sports network, the Intellivision Sports Network, which was a powerful thing back in the day. A lot of things released under your and drove the system back in 91 and 92.
This was sort of like Intellivision's answer to the real sports stuff.
Right? Yeah. And unfortunately, when this game came out in 93, that kind of stuff was sort of already past its prime, so they did not put it into the artwork of the box. Something funny, when Rick was having people test the game inside of Intellivision, he went and had a version made where he turned off the gravity. So he said, okay, I want you to come test my game. He set a few people down. So they hit the button and started going and hit that first jump and just took off and went right off the screen. And people were freaking out. They were hitting their buttons. They couldn't figure out how to land. And they got a good laugh. But it was also, it showed that the physics engine was actually adjustable. Another thing that was kind of weird is he took that physics engine and he also used it in Racing Destruction set for the Commodore.
Oh, he did that?
The physics engine behind it, the engine behind it. Stadium mud bugging for the Intellivision and Monster Truck Rally for the NES are all based.
Have you played that one?
I have not, but they're all based on that same physics engine that came from the Intellivision.
So he actually ported that over to other systems.
Well,
right?
the engine.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I would have never guessed that.
This game, it reviewed harshly.
Really?
Yes. It got very poor reviews. People really had a problem with how it controlled. They couldn't keep themselves on the course. People felt the courses were too long. They said the brakes weren't responsive enough. And that is actually all based, that's all because of the physics engine. If you're going max speed and hit the brake in video games, people are expecting you to stop on the dime. But if you're on a dirt track going top speed and you hit the brake, you're going to slide. And people didn't like that, even though that was the game. That was the whole point of the game. So a lot of scores on this were C minuses and lower.
They were expecting more of an arcade, sort of like an Excite bike.
They were.
Yeah.
And I think that's unfortunate. I think more modern reviews see how special this game was because of its physics engine, because it stepped out of the norm and did something special. But let's talk about how the game controls a little bit. You've got your gas, you've got your brake, and you have two different ways you can control the game based on options that you set up before you start playing.
Yeah, I'm interested to see which one you chose.
Well, you've got where left and right controls your left and right steering. And so you hit left and you start to turn left, you hit right and you start to turn right. Or, since this is an isometric viewpoint of the game, you can also do directional, where if you want to go to the upper left, you press the upper left. As you go around the corner, you kind of slide your thumb around the disc, and then you're pointing, to the lower right.
I used left and right exclusively.
I preferred left and right. Yeah. However, I did remarkably better going directional.
Really?
Yes, and the main reason is if you do slip off the track, I found it lots easier to get going again at a decent speed. I had faster acceleration with directional. So, what are some of the options in this game? There's tons.
Yeah, it's actually amazingly option-filled.
The very first thing when you start up the game is you choose what track you want to run on. 1, 2, 3, or make your own track, but we will certainly get back to that. And they are really lengths of track. 1's the longest, 3 is the shortest.
It's long, brother.
The next thing you choose is how many laps do you want to do? You can do between 1 lap and 10 laps. 10 laps! The next is you choose if you want to go in reverse, do the mirror image of the map you just chose. So essentially you've got 6 pre-built maps because the mirrored image certainly have a different feel.
Yeah.
And then the last option is, do you want to play by yourself, with a computer player, 2 players? Do you want to watch one person go around the track as a demo, or do you want to see 2 computer people race?
Right, which I thought that was cool.
Tons of options, really nice options. And then finally, your last choice just before you get into the race is, do you want to use your left and right to drive or your directional pad? When the game starts up, you are at a start line, you hit the gas, you take off. You are based off of time, not based off of when you finish in a 2-player game. And the reason why that is the Intellivision has to keep both the bikers on the screen at the same time.
Yeah, you should mention the map scrolls.
Yes.
You don't see the whole map on the screen at once.
Yeah,
this is a big map, and the whole map scrolls as you drive on it. It's pretty massive.
Which gives your sprite, they're not huge and beefy, but they're not itty-bitty either. They're a decent-sized sprite.
Yeah.
Whenever someone lags behind and they would drift off the screen in a 2-player race, instead the first person freezes in time. They keep their acceleration, they keep their momentum, and their time stops as well until player 2 catches up, and then everything kind of that player 1 unpauses and everything starts going. I hated that.
That was the worst part of the game.
Yes.
That was because it really, and you could get to the point where you'd be putting along, and well, you know, of course, I was usually the one hosing the computer, but the computer could be midair, and it would just stop.
Yeah.
And you just try to drive along and catch up.
I'm glad that they put a 2-player option in the game, because if two equally skilled people played this, it would probably be really awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, watching 2 computer players go was pretty cool. But that pausing aspect, and I understand that they had to do it, I hated it. After I did it the first few times, I just started doing single player races and was doing it for time.
You know what? You ever play a game like where the computer basically artificially makes it so the race is close? You know what I mean? This is like if it did that all on one screen, and the artificial took place by just making the leader stop so the other guy could catch up effectively.
But as I said before, the winner of the race isn't who crosses the finish line first; it's who has the lowest time.
Right, but still, that is.
It was bad. That was the worst part.
I probably, if I'd owned this, I would probably just play single players and just compete with my buddy with time.
Yeah, that's.
I probably wouldn't even play 2 people.
That's absolutely what I did.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you had 2 equally skilled people that could both stay towards the center of the screen, it would probably work out pretty well. But I don't see that it's working as well as you want.
I appreciate the option being there for 2 players. And like I said, if you both are pretty good, it wouldn't be as big a hassle. But, I mean, God, that sucked.
Yeah.
It was no good. Yeah.
The game plays, you have little hills, big hills, S-curves, left and right curves, straight stretches. I mean, these are all, imagine basically construction. These are your options for the course. What makes it nice is when you hit a jump, you fly, and if you hit the up ramp of another jump, you crash, like you should.
Yeah.
If you land on the downslope or past it, you maintain your speed. You keep going. The curves you have to slow down for.
You drift.
Track.
I mean,
yes.
I couldn't believe that.
Just like real motocross bikers do.
You actually, I mean, you have to anticipate the curve, and you start turning into it, and your guy literally drifts around the curve.
Yes.
And if you consider, again, the year this game came out,
that
in itself is quite remarkable.
And it feels remarkable.
It feels right.
It does.
I mean, because you could just put in some baloney, but I mean, this feels like you're drifting around a corner. And once I did it, the first time it happened, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And when I played it more, I got good enough to where you could cut those corners real tight. Yeah. And your guy will scoot around them, and you can just take right back off, and it's really satisfying.
It feels really good. Now, I do wish they would allow you to drift off the track a little more than they do.
Yeah, once you go off, you're boned.
Yeah, pretty much, if all of your bike leaves the play area, you crash.
Yeah.
And it takes your speed down to 0, and then it sort of points you back to where you need to go.
Not all. That was recovering from a wreck was one of the more difficult, more annoying things. Yeah.
And that's another reason why this review is so low.
And you could get to a point where you're just caterwamping, you're just going backwards, and if you crash, and you could skip. I even had points where I would crash in the wrong spot, and I would actually go back to an older part of the track, and I had to come back around. It would
really?
Huh. Yeah. And not often, but it did. Because there's a thin lane there where there's where you've made the turn. You could screw up real bad. It'll scoot you back out, and you have to come back around the corner, which is it is what it is.
The graphics for this, I thought, were remarkable.
They were very. They made you could see what was going on. Like I knew what I was looking at. Yeah.
I mean, it was obviously it's a 2D plane, but you knew when you were going up a hill.
Yeah.
You knew when you were jumping. You knew when you were airborne. When you went down below a jump, a lower section of the track, you knew that was lower than what you'd left.
Yeah.
It did a really nice job representing height, jumping.
It felt that when you hit a hill at the right speed, you felt like you got a nice result.
Yes. The sprite for the bike is an 8-directional sprite, so it is drawn for 8 directions. Probably could have done with more. Yeah. But it's the Intellivision. I understand the limitation.
This thing going on.
The speed, I thought, was plenty fast enough.
Well, see, then we're gonna have a problem there.
Oh, you thought it was slow?
This game is painfully slow.
No, it's not painfully slow.
It's painfully slow.
It's simulation.
It's probably 1/4 the speed of like an Excite bike. I mean, it is unbelievable.
But here's the difference.
It's just barely playable.
No. Oh my gosh, you were insane.
No.
It's simulation. It is not Excite Bike Arcade where they have one straight little road.
That's true.
And you could just hold the gas down the whole time. No, it's simulation. And for simulation, you cannot crank the speed up to 11 because people are just going to lay on the gas all the time. And that is why this game reviewed so poorly, in my opinion, is people just wanted to hold the gas button the entire time, and they would not accept it's a simulation game and you've got to gas and brake.
It's slow.
It's
snail pace slow. It's glacial.
It's slow for a reason.
Well, the reason is how'd the thing do? It's too freaking slow, man. I love this game. I loved every aspect of it, with one gripe. Now, a guy like myself who's old school, I've been around playing slow crap, so I tolerated it because I understand. You've got to understand the era this game was made. That much said, crank that emulator up to about double speed, you got something. You can really rock and roll, but it's slow, and you have to understand. I'm not ragging on the game's speed of its era, because what this game. No, I don't agree. I think it's limitation of the system.
No,
this game is over ambitious. The fact that you've got that track that is so huge, I mean, it's quite impressive. I'd say I've not played this one until this week, and it was very impressive. The hills, the jumps, the drifting, it's all incredible. But it just ran about, I'd say it needs to run at least another 30% faster.
I disagree. I think
and even when you're at top speed, you're not, in game time, you're not really going that fast. I just thought it was too slow. Now, that doesn't make me not want to play it, but it almost makes me not want to play it. It's very close to being too slow to possibly play.
No, I think the more laxed pace allows for more precision in turns, gives you better reaction, to slow down on jumps so you don't go flying past your mark. I think it was slower on purpose. I certainly don't think it was slow. I think when you get into straightaways and you really crank up your speed, I think you feel that the screen is moving fast enough that you feel like you're going fast. I had no problem with the speed.
Anyone that plays this, comment below and tell me what you think. I would wager that they're going to be on my side on this one. Hey, I'm not killing it. It's too slow.
Now the sound, in my opinion, was the worst aspect of the game. The engine noises were good.
Yeah, they
were very throaty. Gave you a real, no exhaust pipe or little exhaust pipe type of noise, but it was almost grinding. I wish there were some crowd noises.
That happens a lot, though. In those older games, you get that kind of, you get that horrible. Like we played a game. I think it was on the DX. No, it was on the. What was it we played on? It was a game me and Bo played, BBC Micro maybe, and it was a car game. It was just nonstop because you had that once. It was just god awful. I mean. It happens. I'm not going to hold that against it, given what... I mean, this thing was doing remarkable math in the background. That's what I'm thinking. Even the speed of it, I mean, it's to be accepted considering the...
what they were going for.
So,
now wait. We still have the most important part.
Well, that's what I was going to talk about.
What really made this thing unique was it had a track editor.
Yes.
A track editor for the Intellivision in 83.
And it's usable. That's what's amazing.
Yes, it's really, and it's very open-ended. You can make it the course that you want. It says, here's your landmass. Here's your starting line. Go nuts.
Yeah, and
put curves where you want, jumps where you want, straightaways where you want. Now, you're limited to, of course, the set pieces that the main maps use.
Right, but I mean, that's to be expected.
Right.
That's why, when you said the reviews, people said the maps are too long or whatever. Make a short map.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Exactly. How are you holding that against them? You can make your own maps.
Yeah,
it's got the ability to play the last map made, which is something else that that's another option you didn't mention earlier. I was like, I'm going to make me a map. Screw it, and I did, and it worked.
Yes,
and I even had the computer race on my map.
Yes.
2 people. It was always like, let's see how these suckers do, and it was cool.
They navigate your made tracks as well as they do the pre-built.
Yeah.
The options for the map building made sense.
Sure.
The keypad, you had your select your track, and then you had your enter to confirm that, okay, go on to the next piece. It felt right. What you made was well represented to what you got in the game. And a lot of people say, like, oh, this is like the precursor to Excitebike. And it is. I mean, obviously, it's a motocross game where you get to make your own track. Those are both huge features of the Excitebike. But I think saying that this was an early Excitebike does a disservice to the game, because unlike Excitebike, this was a simulation.
Well, also, stop me from it. The Excitebike had no curves.
This
has curves. Right. This has drifting. This is much more like real motocross. Really.
I think if you didn't have the track editing in there, no one would ever make the comparison. But since it does, they do. And is Excitebike a better game? It's a different game.
It's the speed. If this game was a little faster, and of course you guys got to think when the Excitebike came out,
several
this was
years
an arcade
later.
game before it was in the home system. So this was a very early attempt to do something quite remarkable.
Yeah, if you want arcade action, sure, go with Excitebike. If you want something that it has simulation aspects, go with this.
I was surprised. I jumped into the track editing and I made a couple,
Yeah.
And it worked. It was no problem.
Sure.
And it was not hard. And just had them race. It was cool. I was surprised to see that in there. I mean, both these games today, they both have shortcomings based sort of on the hardware and what you had to do to get around. But I mean, they're both remarkable achievements in programming. Yeah, they're incredibly. They're eerily similar. It's funny how you pick these two games from two different genres, but they're both very well thought out. Yeah.
On the marketplace, a loose cart of this run you about $6. Complete with box goes closer to about $18.50, and sealed is close to about $27. Now, something I want to note, just as a sidebar on this, you played this on an Intellivision Lives compilation for the Xbox.
I had this on an Intellivision, like you said, Intellivision Lives for the original Xbox, and I played it. Also, I did emulate it too to see if there was, if there was any bearing on the speed, and it was pretty much identical.
I had tremendous issues emulating this game.
Really?
And I found out after the fact what had happened was this game has a PAL version and an NTSC version.
Yeah.
The PAL version runs at a different clock speed.
Slower.
Which makes it very, very, very difficult to emulate. And the ROMs that are floating around out there are predominantly the PAL version for whatever reason.
And that might explain, because again, from previous experience, the PAL stuff's always, the NTSC stuff always runs quicker.
Right.
So,
So if you are looking to try this out for yourself, just know going in, you might run into difficulties.
Just go buy the card. It's easier.
Oh, if you've got an Intellivision, this is for $6, no brainer. Go buy it right now.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like this one more than mine. We swapped role reversal.
I liked yours more than this, just because yours hit with me more. But I think this is a solid 7 out of 10.
That's got to be the first time this has ever happened.
It's crazy
when we liked each other's game, because we talked about this before the show, and Brent was like, "Man, you picked a great one." I was just like, "Man, I thought Roy liked yours." So it's funny how it works. All right. With all that out of the way, hit the music?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's still picking time.
So, if you'll recall last week, we spun the wheel to make this deal, but for this week, we're not going to spin the wheel to make the deal.
The deal's already been made.
That's right.
Behind closed doors.
We had the chat choice come up on the wheel, and the chat has spoken.
Tremendous. I was hoping to get a few more YouTube comments than we got. But the other responses that we listened to, tremendous feedback.
We got a lot. We got some email. We got Discord comments as well on it. And it was actually close. And
I believe you said the victor by one vote.
By one vote. Now.
And guys, if your pick didn't get selected, don't feel bad. Almost everything that got mentioned, it's getting a pie piece. It's going to eventually be on the wheel.
That's right. And we got some really good, interesting ideas.
Yes, some good ones.
So I will say in second place, and this I had to look up to see if we could have even played these. That's how obscure this is. And I was very excited when I saw it come up, was the FM Towns Marty, which is the original Japanese CD system. Now that's an obscure one.
That's second place, unfortunately.
I found out that not only is it emulatable, but the emulation runs great. So then it would be a task of trying to find the ISOs for it, which that I've never looked for. So, but if it comes up, we'll figure something out.
Yep.
But in first place, this is one I've heard of. Thankfully, I know I've got a large library of these and can run it. Is the Bandai Wonder Swan Color. This is again, a system that I don't know if did we ever get that in the States? I'm not sure if we ever got it.
Absolutely not.
If we did, it was in very small amounts. And it should be interesting. I believe it was a portable color. Of course, Bandai also had the Wonder Swan. It was a black and white one, and then this is the color iteration. We also received votes, just to name a couple of the other things. It was Atari 8-bit got votes. What was the other one? Oh, the Atari 5200 got some votes. And we got some real obscure stuff that it was so obscure, I was just like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is even emulatable. So people want the exotic stuff, that's for sure. So we're going to pick two games. First of all, do you know anything about the Wonder Swan Color?
I know of it. That's it.
You know of it.
I know of it.
Well, I only know of it strictly because of setting up emulation packages on the Xbox and Raspberry Pi. That's where I'd basically heard of it. But we're going to learn something, buddy.
We are. We're going to learn together
next week
if you
on that.
Heard of it.
So, hey, like I said, thanks for everyone for voting for us and sending. And if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, because God knows we could take all the help we can get, you can send your responses to. Of course, you could always, comment on the video. But if you'd like to email us directly, it's argpresents@mail.com. That's mail.com. And we will answer as many emails as we can, and we will try to address any comments that you make about the show. So I think that will bring us to a close. Any parting thoughts, Brent?
I had a lot of fun this week. Even though I was very frustrated with the Motocross emulation, once I got up and running, I had a really good time with it.
Yeah, both games recommended, and this is a great system if you ever want to check it out.
Absolutely.
So let's shut it down, Brent. We will be back next week with the Bandai Wonder Swan Color, and until then, stay out of the rain.
Hey, look! The Dungeons and Dragons ride! Wow, neat!
Give me a break.
I don't like this!
Whoa! What's happening?
Whoa! Where are we?
Look out! Fear not, Ranger. Barbarian, magician, thief, cavalier, and acrobat.
Who was that?
That was Venger, the force of evil. I am Dungeon Master, your guide in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons.